Everybody, what's up? JayC here, and welcome to another live stream edition. And just want to make sure everything's working correctly. There we go. I wasn't seeing anybody in the chat box, and I was like, well, hey, is this working correct? But I see Mr. Allmine is here, so what's up? Lord Venger, Blake is in the house, Quinn's Comics. All right, good to go. So welcome to a Thursday night live stream. We are just under 2 weeks until Christmas. So next week's live stream will be the last live stream before Christmas. And I'm not going to do a giveaway tonight. I've been doing giveaways this month for store credits to Big Bad Toy Store. Not going to do one tonight, but next week, as we gear up for Christmas, you can probably expect some type of giveaway here on the live stream. Now, I also just want to let you guys know, reminder that, not doing a giveaway tonight here, but we are still running those 2 contests over on Marvelous News and Toy News International, where we're giving away 2 different $200 store credits. Not one, but $200 store credits to Big Bad Toy Store, which we'll be giving away, doing a drawing for on the 23rd and announcing the winner on the 24th on the website. So no giveaway tonight here, but you do have some chances to win some pretty good swag if you're willing to go over to the websites and participate on those message boards. And like I said, next week, we'll be just a few days out from Christmas, and we'll probably do something here again on the channel for a giveaway. What's up, Neil? Oh, and also just a reminder, I forgot to talk about this. I talked about it 2 weeks ago, but I forgot to talk about it last week. But if you haven't already, please think about donating to Toys for Tots. I just made my donation yesterday. It doesn't have to be anything super. I did a monetary donation on their website. Toys for Tots is run by the Marine Corps, the United States Marine Corps. So they're a legit operation. They help bring toys to families and kids who might not otherwise be able to enjoy presents under the tree on Christmas morning. So it is an organization that I strongly believe in. And, you can either find a local business that has Toys for Tots drop-off boxes. I think they're probably still taking toys. As we get closer and closer to Christmas, they'll quit taking toys. But I think you probably, if you win it this weekend or something, you could find local retail businesses with drop-off boxes and donate at least one unwrapped toy. Or like I said, you can do like me and go on their website and make like a monetary donation. So... but I strongly encourage you all to do that if you haven't already, because again, it's a great organization, and I think all of us probably at one time or other, remember that feeling of waking up Christmas morning and, coming downstairs and finding new toys, action figures, what have you, under the Christmas tree. So, so I see some of you guys are already delving into the DCU conversation, and, that's probably the biggest news of the week. Yesterday's news that Henry Cavill is out again as Superman in the DCU. James Gunn took to Twitter once again. James Gunn is one of the people now running the DCU. And he took to Twitter, and Henry Cavill did as well. In fact, I think Henry Cavill was the first one to make a tweet about the meeting he had with James Gunn and saying that they weren't going to be using him, at least for now, as Superman. So, and I think that's what prompted James Gunn to then come out and make his response as well. But this is Omega Max this is my thoughts on it. So, obviously I'm watching this on the outside looking in, just like you all are. So there's quite possibly a lot of things that have gone on that we're just not aware of. But just from what I've seen, I mean, what strikes me has happened here is The Rock, who I think, thought Black Adam was going to be this huge thing, was going to like reset the DC universe. He was going to be the cornerstone of it. He was going to become the Robert Downey Jr. of DC, basically. And I've said this before, and I made a post about this like a month or so ago before the Black Adam movie came out. I made a post saying like, if you really look at it, The Rock has never really had, where he was the headliner in the movie, a real success at the box office. I mean, The Rock has definitely become well known outside, obviously The Rock was originally known as a wrestler, so many people who watch wrestling knew him from that. But, I think definitely The Rock has become much more of a household name outside of wrestling. But he's still really, I don't think he's really become that leading man in Hollywood. So, um, I feel like The Rock was hoping that was the Black Adam movie was going to change that. And so, he's the one that really pushed for Henry Cavill to be brought back in as Superman. Um, him, we talked about this last week, but from what I read, both he and Cavill are repped. They have the same agent who reps them in Hollywood, and so they have a connection there. I think they know each other and all that. So, um, I think he wanted Cavill to come in. I think he put together that after credit scene in the movie with Superman. That was not something originally planned for that movie. It was a last minute addition, and I've said this before. I don't think they had any plan for where that was going to go. I think it was really mostly just done to hype the Black Adam movie. Mysteriously, that after credit scene leaked out on the internet a week before the movie opened. And I think that, I obviously I can't say this for sure, but I feel like that was like a deliberate leak to build up hype for the movie and get everyone excited for it. So, um, and at the time the movie came out, it really looked like it was going to be hugely successful at the box office. But then, as we talked about last week, that really didn't end up seemingly being the case. Now, there's a lot of debate still going on whether the movie's actually going to take a loss or whether it's going to break even or maybe make a small profit. I've not really seen anyone say that the movie is going to make a huge profit, like it's going to be this huge box office success. I've also seen some recent reports, and I have no idea how valid these reports are, but I've seen some reports suggesting that The Rock fabricated box office numbers to make it seem like the movie made more money than it did. So I don't know how much truth there is to that, but I've seen that floating around the internet. But I don't think the movie was this huge box office success like I think The Rock was hoping it was going to be. Now, I've said this before. I thought the movie was pretty good. I like The Rock in general. And I thought he did a pretty good job with the movie. And I left the theater somewhat excited that we might start to see some good things with the DCU, with Superman, things like that. So I was definitely on board for maybe seeing where this was going to take us. But at the end of the day, for whatever reason, and there's probably a number, I don't think it necessarily didn't do great at the box office because people thought it was a bad movie. I think a lot of people just don't like to go to the movie theaters anymore. I think, I mean, the movie's coming out on digital. If you have HBO Max, you'll be able to watch the movie this week for free. And it's been out on, where you can rent it, pay $5 and rent it and watch it from home for at least a week or so. So, the movie was not exclusively in the movie theaters for that long. And I think a lot of people have just come to say, you know what, I'm just going to watch this when it comes out at home. I'm not going to bother going to the movie theaters. And again, we've talked about this before, but I really think that's in large part why these movies are not being as successful as people were hoping. And I think people are saying, quit trying to make us go to the movie theaters. Just let us watch it from the comfort of our home. If we want to go to the movie theater, great, release it in the movie theaters for those that want to go see it. But quit trying to make us go to the movie theaters because a lot of us have home theater type setups where good enough sound systems and big enough TV screens. I mean, a large flat screen TV these days does not cost that much money, especially if you get it like on sale on the holidays or something like that. So, you can set up a decent, theater experience in your house pretty easily these days. So, um, I realize especially younger people still like to go to the movie theaters, and such. So, I think, movies should still be released at theaters, but I really have been a proponent to say, these movies should see home release. I'm spending money to pay for HBO Max. I should be able to watch the movies there if that's where I want to watch them. Same thing. Like I went to see Top Gun, the Top Gun sequel, in the movie theaters, and that was probably one that was worth going to the movie theaters to see because of all the aerial footage and stuff. But like that movie is yet to come out on Paramount Plus. It's been out on digital. I could go rent the movie. I could go pay $5 or whatever to go watch the movie at home. But I feel like I pay for Paramount Plus. That movie should already be out on the streaming service where I could watch it without any additional cost. But there's this, I've said this before. There's this. I feel like there's this battle going on, between streaming services and movie theaters and all that. And I feel like Black Adam was probably a casualty of that to some extent. But nevertheless, I don't think it did that huge success. So I feel like The Rock kind of lost some of his leverage, because the movie didn't perform as good as people were hoping. And so, now entered James Gunn and the other guy, and they've been handed the reins to basically try and clean up this huge mess that is the DC universe. And hold up. And so everything that was happening with Cavill happened before James Gunn and the other guy were brought in. So I hear a lot of people being like, well, why did James Gunn bring The Rock back and then basically say we're not going to use you anymore? Well, James Gunn didn't bring The Rock back, or not The Rock, but Henry Cavill back. The Rock brought Henry Cavill back, and the guy that was running things before James Gunn and the took over and everything. So, I think James Gunn wants a clean slate. I think he wants to basically totally disavow the Snyderverse, which I don't totally agree with. I liked aspects of the Snyderverse. I think Henry Cavill was a good Superman, and I wouldn't mind seeing him continue to be Superman. But at the same time, it's a very divisive topic within the world of DC fans. And so I can understand this desire to maybe just want to like start completely fresh. Just like everything that's happened up until this point, is no longer valid, and we're starting completely new, and going forward with new actors, new stories, new things, like, and we're going to build a new DC universe. And so I feel like that isn't a bad decision. However, the problem with that is you've already got all these projects that are still in the pipeline. We've got Aquaman 2 coming out, right? I mean, we had these rumors that the actor, who played Aquaman was possibly going to be recast as Lobo. Well, I don't know how much truth there was to that rumor, but the fact is, if you were going to do that, that sends a message. Why would I go watch Aquaman 2 if there's no point? If you're scrapping all of that, why am I going to waste time going to watch that movie? Because there's no point to it. Same thing with the Flash movie. I mean, if you're basically getting rid of everything and starting fresh, what's the point of going to see these movies that have yet to be released but have already been made, when they're not going to go anywhere? So, that's kind of, I feel like, is the problem that Gunn is really having to deal with. Is he's still got these movies in the pipeline that are still connected to the Snyderverse, but yet he wants to kind of pretend like the Snyderverse no longer exists and start fresh. And I don't know how you balance out those two. And of course, he has his own Peacemaker series, which, he used those Justice League characters at the end of Peacemaker. So he's now connected, the Peacemaker series with the Snyderverse. And so is he going to get rid of Peacemaker? I mean, I know we're definitely going to get a second season of Peacemaker, but after that, is he going to cut that and do, something completely different? I don't know. But I feel like what's been going on between Cavill and The Rock and Gunn is kind of this power play within Hollywood where The Rock wanted to be calling the shots, wanted to be the cornerstone, and Gunn and the other guy are basically like, no, you don't get to call the shots. We're making the decisions now, and we're starting fresh. And your movie wasn't that successful, so we might not even use you again in another movie. We might just and I don't know. But that's what I kind of see going on here is this power play between The Rock and James Gunn and Warner Brothers, and Cavill just kind of got caught in the middle. Well, I know that's kind of was the original plan, but I don't know how much of that is still going to. I mean, I I don't know if the Flash is really going to reset, how much of the Flash is going to reset things, or if that's even still the plan. I mean, Gunn came out, one of the things that Gunn said yesterday was that they do now have a plan in place. They have a slate of movies that they're going to do, and they essentially now have a plan in place, which they'll start revealing details for next year. So, I don't know how much of the existing movies is going to play a role in that, but from what we've been seeing and hearing, it really feels like Gunn just wants to be completely done with the Snyderverse and start fresh. Coco says Rock and Cavill will make the MCU great again. I don't know about The Rock, but I do think that we will end up seeing Cavill appear in the MCU. He has said publicly that he would love to play Captain Britain. Now I don't know if Feige and Disney have any plans to actually use Captain Britain in anything in the near future, but I feel like they definitely could see Cavill pop up somewhere in some way in the MCU. I know there have been rumors of him playing Hyperion, which I know Hyperion is kind of a Superman copycat, but I feel like there's better characters that Cavill could play than Hyperion. But yeah, I definitely feel like Cavill might end up in the MCU in the fairly near future. The Rock, I don't know, but Cavill definitely. Pendragon says the MCU is as dead as the DCE. I wouldn't go quite that far. I will tell you. I mean, my personal opinion is Phase Four was a bit of a letdown after Avengers Endgame, and there were a few things. I mean, most of the movies were watchable, but none of the movies, in my opinion, were nearly as exciting or as enticing. Really got me like excited to go see the movie. None of the movies in Phase Four really did that for me. Even like Spider-Man: No Way Home, I thought that was one of the better movies in Phase Four. The Doctor Strange movie was probably, as far as Doctor Strange, or as far as the MCU Disney movies themselves, was probably the best Phase Four movie. But still, none of those movies really were as good as the most of the movies in the previous phases. And I think the biggest issue with that right now is right now there's been no foreseeable roadmap of where we're going. Obviously, we're starting to head towards Kang now, and I think Phase Five will start to flesh that out uh, more, and I think that will help things. But um, we really there's really been it's just been all over the place with the MCU since after Avengers Endgame, and so it's really been kind of hard to that can work in the comic books to a certain extent, but I don't think that works too well in the movies. I think if you're going to have this over encompassing universe, you have to be everything has to you can have its own individual story to a certain extent, but each movie needs to be a piece that is leading us towards something that we're excited about. In the first phase it was the Avengers, right? And then it was Thanos. But since then, again, it's just really not been clear where we're going. And again, those of us who follow all the rumors and internet gossip and all that, we know Kang is going to be probably the next big bad guy. But if you just go and you're just a casual movie watcher and you don't pay attention to all the internet and everything, even up until now, you probably still don't know about Kang or what's coming or anything like that. So, um, but the reason why I don't think MCU is quite in the same boat as DC is MCU, even though this last phase I don't think was nearly as good as the previous ones, it still has those previous successes that keeps people coming back, waiting to hopefully get back to that level of excitement for the movies. So DC really has not had that. Um, so they are much more behind the eight ball. I do think, Disney and Marvel and Feige all need to kind of make sure that Phase 5 is more streamlined and gets us to something that we can all be excited about. But I definitely feel like just because of the successes of the previous phases, they're in a much better situation than Warner Brothers and DC right now. Stickman says MCU needs to pivot to the X-Men year. Well, and to be honest, I think that has been part of the MCU's problem, because you got to realize that all of this stuff is planned out well into the future. And I think when Disney ended up buying 20th Century Fox and got the X-Men and Fantastic Four and stuff back, we were all excited and we were all ready to start seeing the X-Men right away. But it's not like you can just jam those characters into what's you would think was a well thought out, planned storyboard. So I feel like that threw a lot of monkey wrenches into the MCU plans as they tried to start to scramble and redo things and come up with ways where they could start trying to add these characters that we all want to see. But if they did it right, probably would be a few years off still from them actually making it to the big screen. And so I actually think them surprisingly getting back the X-Men and Fantastic Four really kind of threw things out of whack for Marvel, which is why I feel like Phase 4 was not nearly as good as the previous phases. John says the best DC movie from recent years is not part of the DCU. Um, I'm guessing you're either thinking Batman or the Joker movie. MK, Ant-Man 3 looks like a Spy Kid 3. I mean, I will agree with the MK. The trailers for Ant-Man have not excited me. The only reason that's got me remotely interested in Ant-Man right now is that obviously that's going to be our main real introduction. Obviously, we got a glimpse of him in the Loki series, but Ant-Man is really probably going to be our first real look at Kang, the main bad guy of the MCU. So for the foreseeable future. So that's really the only thing that has me interested in the Ant-Man movie. But but again, if you're just like a general moviegoer, and you probably don't even realize that yet. So you probably don't realize that Kang's going to be this huge pivotal player in the next few phases of, or at least the next two phases of Marvel. So but I agree that the trailers so far have not gotten me super excited. Richard Garcia says DC needs to abandon the Twilight Batman. And and that's another issue that the folks at DC, I mean, all these properties have to deal with this to a certain extent, but I think because of the Snyderverse stuff, the DC fan base has become so divided that it's going to be very difficult to get them reunited and really back something. I really feel like the DC universe is in this position where it doesn't matter what they're going to do, they're going to they're going to make a lot of people unhappy. Um, and I think honestly, I remember I talked about this back when the Justice League Snyderverse cut was going to premiere on HBO Max, and I said that I felt like that was a mistake unless Warner Brothers was planning on continuing the Snyderverse. But if this was really just going to be a one-shot thing to give us I felt like that was a huge mistake because, especially if it ended up being good, because then people were going to want more. And I think that's exactly what happened is people wanted more. They liked the Snyderverse cut of Justice League and they wanted to see more. They wanted to see these characters. They wanted to see Henry Cavill back as Superman. They wanted to see Ben Affleck back as Batman. Even the guy playing the Flash until he went, psycho and started, you know, going after people. I mean, I think had a decent shot at being a popular Flash, but and that's where the Warner Brothers management never seems to know what they want. They're always changing their minds. If something's not this huge success, then they're ready to basically trash it and try something else, and that's caused a lot of confusion. And I think a lot of people, that's probably their biggest issue that they've got to deal with is nobody has any faith in Warner Brothers and DC that they're actually going to come up with something good. Thor Golden Cub says it's going to I gotta fix my screen. I lost that comment. So, oh, here we go. Oh, yeah, sorry, Thor. Oh, yeah, here we go. It's going to take another decade to reinvent the DCU. Will people still be interested? Who knows? By that point, people may have moved on from superheroes. I mean, that's another issue if you really think about it. There's such a glutton of superhero movies out there, TV shows and stuff. At some point, people probably are going to start getting tired of it. So I don't know. Omega Maximus. Do I remember the Battleship movie? I do. I only watched it once and it was pretty shitty. But yes, another one of Hasbro's failures at Hollywood, but I do remember it. I doubt DC and Warner Brothers are going to go bankrupt, but they may get bought out by somebody again. Who knows? Chuck. Yeah, that's what I was saying. DC has built no equity with fans. No one believes in them, and I agree with you 100%. That's what I was saying before about how I don't, even though I didn't think Phase 4 of Marvel was nearly as good as the previous phases. They had that equity built up from the first three phases. That even though the Phase 4 wasn't nearly as good, fans aren't going to abandon Marvel right off the bat. If Phase 5 ends up being really shitty or not that great, then they might start to lose that equity that they built up in the first three phases. But that's where they're still in a better position. I feel like than DC is, because DC really has just not had any huge successes really since the Kristen Bale movies. And to this day, I don't know why they didn't just use the Kristen Bale Batman movies as their launching point. Using Christian Bale as Batman. I know, there was some indications he didn't want to do Batman or whatever, but I call bullshit on that. If you offered him enough money, he would have done it, I feel like. And, the Christian Bale movies would have been probably their best bet of launching the DCU. We were already well established with that Batman. While, you know, like I thought the third movie wasn't that great, I still like Christian Bale's Batman, and would have loved to seen him join the Justice League and things like that. So why they didn't do that, I don't know. 3M says, I thought the Joker movie was pretty boring. I was not a huge fan of the Joker movie. The Pattinson Batman movie I didn't think was too bad. I was talking about this on Facebook the other day. I feel like the Pattinson Batman is probably the most accurate Batman version of Batman that we've gotten on the big screen, because most of the live action movie Batmans, the biggest aspect that they seem to always kind of just gloss over is that Batman is a detective, that like he's like the Sherlock Holmes of modern times. And you never really see that played out very well in the movies. What, you know, Michael Keaton, Christian Bale, you know, they basically were these rich guys with this tech, and they either just fought their way out of something, or they used this tech that they just happened to have. And, you know, you really didn't see much of the detective aspect of the character. Whereas I think the Pattinson Batman actually highlighted the detective aspect of the character. Now, the Pattinson Batman was a younger Batman, not nearly as experienced, but he definitely, I feel like, used more in the way of detective skills than any of the other movie Batman. So in a lot of ways, I feel like that version of Batman is more accurate to the comics than most of the other ones that have played him. That doesn't mean he's my favorite Batman. I just feel like, as far as, you know, if you really compare to the modern comics Batman, he's actually much more closer than most of the other movie Batmans. Chuck Perry says, honestly, Sony needs to give Spider-Man back. I'm tired of them. Yeah, well, that isn't going to happen because Sony makes a shit ton of money from Spider-Man. So they don't care. Yeah, they just want to make money. So they're not going to ever freely give Spider-Man back because he just makes too much money for them. Richard says, who should DC use as Batman? I don't know. I don't. And again, I think you have to decide and Batman, I mean, if you really look at Batman over the years, even in the comics, you know, he has changed a lot over the years. I mean, look back in the 60s, you know, Adam West Batman, you know, that's not the Batman most of us. I mean, those of us who are my age at least, I think, love the 66 Batman. And granted, I was not alive when that show originally aired, but I watched it in reruns and things like that. So we all love the 66 Batman, but you know, if you tried to give us that version of Batman on the big screen, everyone would be in an uproar, right? And you know, Batman wasn't always as gritty and dark as he's often portrayed today. But so I think, you know, a big question that the Warner Brothers and Gunn and such have to ask is, what version of Batman do they want to try and bring us? Obviously, I think the Batman we all love the most and think is the most accurate is, you know, the Kevin Conroy Batman the Animated Series Batman. But you know, it's a lot easier to build up a character in a TV series, especially an animated one, than it is in a live action 2 hour movie. So, you know, I don't know. I don't know if you could replicate a Kevin Conroy Batman very well in a 2 hour movie. It would be very hard. Um, but I don't know who could do that, you know, as far as give us that version of Batman. Um, like what actor? I really don't know who would be a good Batman, you know, actor to play Batman. I mean, I didn't dislike Ben Affleck. But he definitely wasn't very Batmanish to me. No, I mean Ryan Reynolds is a one-dimensional actor. He plays the same character in every single movie that he does. And it works with some characters. Obviously, that character is Deadpool, so that's why he was the perfect choice for Deadpool. And, pretty much any movie you watch with him, he's essentially playing that same character. But yes, he was a horrible choice for Hal Jordan because Hal Jordan was a much more serious type character and Reynolds just was not able to do that. That's like, I mean, if they tried to cast Ryan Reynolds as Batman, that would be such a horrible choice. George Clooney, if you really think about it, George Clooney, I think, could have been a really good Batman, especially when he was younger. Um, Obviously, I think he's way too old now to be Batman, but I feel like if they had given him a real script and a real, story, George Clooney could have been a good Batman. Rush, yes, Mask of Phantasm was a good movie, but it was just a continuation of the cartoon series. So if that was your first exposure, if that movie was your very first exposure to Batman, the Kevin Conroy Batman, you probably would not have liked it nearly as much. I mean, maybe not, but I feel like that really doesn't count because that was just that was just essentially a 2 hour episode of Batman the animated series that happened to run in movie theaters, but that's not quite the same thing. Omega Maximus, thoughts on Professor? Well, I mean that's a rumor, and whether there's any truth to that, I have no idea. I think you could come up with some good African American actors to play those characters, but would I rather they stick to the source material? Probably, but it would depend on who they cast. But again, I'm not even like, am I going to worry about that based on BS internet rumors? No. So Zachary Levi, I don't know. I think he. I mean, obviously, I haven't seen the second movie yet, so we'll have to wait and see. But I mean, you got to realize that Shazam is a kid, right? He's a kid in an adult body, and I think Zachary actually did a pretty good job with that. So I actually think he did a decent job as Shazam. Kilmer, I think, could have been a good Batman, but you got to remember back then in those movies were much more were far less about Batman himself and more about the villains. Um, in fact, the reason why Val Kilmer didn't do the fourth Batman movie is he really didn't like. I mean, he basically just thought he was in a suit that he could barely move in and had no real, basically wasn't doing any acting. He basically just kind of sat there. So, we really didn't get a good look at Val Kilmer and what he could have possibly done as Batman. But I mean, I think Michael Keaton, who's an amazing actor, did a very good job of not, again, really no detective aspect of it. I mean, he did figure out the Smilex stuff and how that worked, but so there was a little bit of a detective work there, but it wasn't really played out very well in that movie. But I mean, I still think Michael Keaton did a pretty solid job as Batman. 3M says Zachary Levi is right up there with Ryan. Well, I don't think either one's annoying. I mean, they just play certain type of characters. But again, I look at Shazam, and essentially, when you think about Shazam just being a kid in an adult body, that is the character. Then, I think Levi actually does a pretty good job of that. Do I think Levi would be a good Superman character? Would be a good Superman? No, I think he'd be a horrible Superman. But again, Shazam, for who Shazam is, I think he actually does a pretty good job. Omega. Well, I mean, we saw Robin in two of the original Batman movies, but and I guess I forget the actor's name, but they kind of had set up a Robin in the Kristen Bale movies, but yeah, they never really went anywhere with it. John is strong. Batman Forever and Batman and Robin, you're 100% right. Those movies were made much more with the kids in mind. Back then, superheroes were not considered something that adults really spent a lot of time watching. Um, I think the Michael Keaton Jack Nicholson movie was again probably really made more for kids in mind, but ended up being something. It really, that was probably the first time you saw a movie like that where adults really were like, oh, this is actually really good. And I mean, I think it took really heavy caliber actors like Jack Nicholson being in it to attract adults to even go see it. But once they did, I think a lot of people ended up really liking it. But they really got to the point of being super silly by the time we got to Batman and Robin. They had gotten to this point where they were making it so silly that it just got stupid. And that's why I say, as far as like George Clooney goes, I mean, the Batman and Robin movie is the worst Batman movie ever, but I don't really blame George Clooney for that. I blame the script and just, what they were trying to do back then. And I think I take that back. I said the Michael Keaton Jack Nicholson movie I think probably was made more with adults in mind, even though back then again superheroes was not really something considered to be that attractive to older adults. But I think then the second Batman movie, Batman Returns, didn't do as well at the box office, and so that's when they decided, well, we need to start making this more campy and silly, kind of more in keeping with the 66 Batman series so that, we can start attracting more kids to the movies. I think they kind of felt like maybe the Joker, the Jack Nicholson Michael Keaton Batman movie and the Danny DeVito Penguin and Michelle Pfeiffer Catwoman movie were too dark, and so, adults were not taking their kids to see those movies. Well, all those movies are made to sell toys. I mean, to a certain extent, but they're also made to make a lot of money. Yeah, Arnold Schwarzenegger was a terrible freeze, and back then Arnold Schwarzenegger was in his I'm going to do comedy movies and nothing but comedy movies because I'm tired of being typecast as an action star. And so, Schwarzenegger during that time period was very much in his uh, jovial, I'm going to make everything kind of a joke type thing. All right, well, suffice to say, I think the DCU is going to have to go through a very turbulent time. I have a feeling that the next few DC movies are not going to perform well at the box office. I think Aquaman is likely going to be a huge bomb. The Flash movie, I mean, I don't know. That one's I think a lot of people will go see it just to see Michael Keaton, but whether that movie is really a success or not remains to be seen. The Shazam movie, I don't know. I think so. I don't think it matters what they do at this point. I think most of the DC movies are not going to be huge successes, and how they kind of start fresh or whatever. I don't know how they're going to actually pull that off, but they definitely I think have a turbulent time. And honestly, I don't envy James Gunn. if he pulls it off, if he's successful in rebooting the DC universe and it becomes very successful, he'll be, my guess is he'll be considered a god in Hollywood. But if he doesn't, if he's not successful, then he's going to take all the blame for it not being successful, even though he was basically handed this huge mess. If he is not successful in turning things around, he's the one that's going to get all the blame for it. And so, I really don't envy James Gunn and what the task that he has ahead of him. So, changing subjects again. So this arrived today. My last and final Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle loot crate from NECA and Loot Crate. So I thought I'd go on and open this up here tonight. Show you guys what's inside. I'm sure people who got it before me have already posted pictures, but what the hell. So obviously, the coolest thing here is the Armagon figure. And honestly, like I don't have any of the video game figures. I didn't collect any of the video game figures from NECA. And I don't even really remember this guy from any of the games. But I just thought he was so cool looking that I wanted to get him. So I'm gonna put, even though technically he's a video game figure, I'm going to put him on the shelf with my other cartoon figures. Thank you, Chuck, for the super chat donation. It's always appreciated. Are those Marvel legit Legend figures? I assume you're talking about the Spider-Verse figures. I'm pretty sure they are legit. I mean, I don't know who leaked those images. Obviously, so I can't sit here and say 100% definitively, but yes, from everything, they look pretty legit. So I'm pretty sure that they are legit. But until Hasbro officially confirms it, I'm not going to sit here and say 100%. But I personally do not think they're fake or anything like that. I do think those are the Across the Spider-Verse figures that Hasbro is going to be doing. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute, but let me finish going through this box. So we got a squeezy Krang head. Ooh, a pair of turtle socks that I will never ever wear, but all right, this might be the best shirt out of all the shirts they've been sending in these loot crates. And it is an extra, they sent me the right size, so it's an extra large. So you might see me wearing this in future videos. I like this shirt. We get a little digitized pin of Leatherneck. So I'll put that over on my pin collection post over there. Ooh, and then Toka and Razar glass set. That's pretty cool. Little shot tight glasses of Toka and Razar. So kind of like the Happy Meal glasses that you used to get back in the day, but for shooting whiskey, I guess. That's pretty cool. I gotta say that probably the swag. This is probably, as far like, I didn't get these boxes for the extra swag, but this box probably has the best swag outside of the figure than any of the other boxes. So, but Armagon definitely will be a nice addition to the collection. I will tell you that I will probably never do one of these loot crate things again. I mean, what was it, 2 years ago that we pre-ordered these things, and we're just now getting the final figure. I'm not so sure NECA is going to do any more figures with Loot Crate, but if they do, it would have to be a damn good one figure for me to go through all the Loot Crate crap again. Yeah, Leatherhead. What did I say? Leatherneck? I've never done. I mean, this is the first time I've ever done Loot Crate, but yeah, I got to tell you, it was not a great experience. Mr. Allman said, "Oh, go wear the socks." Yeah, no, I'm not doing the socks, man. I don't like I usually when I wear socks, they're short socks anyway. But I wear the shirt, but I'm not doing the socks. All right, so getting back to the whole Marvel Legend thing, the Spider Verse figure. So yeah, I'm pretty sure they're legit. And it's one thing if you're like, I'm not really into animated style figures, so I'm probably not going to get these. But I've seen so many people trying to bash these figures, those figures, and I'm like, they're based on the source material. They look like the source material that they're based on. If you don't like the animated style in the movie, I could understand that. But yeah, why are you bashing Hasbro for giving us something that's fairly movie accurate? I just to me, I think that's better. Giving us something movie accurate is better than like what they did in the first movie, where they just gave us some comic book figures and said, "Oh, look, these are the movie figures." And in fact, most of the figures have already been done. Comic book versions of the figures have already been done. We've already gotten a comic book version of Spider Punk and Spider Gwen and Miles Morales, and we've already gotten a Peter B. Parker, even though this one still has the sweatpants for some reason. But and I'm sure at some point Hasbro will probably give us a comic book accurate spot figure. But I just they're animated style. And like I see a lot of people saying, "Well, I can't put these on the shelf with my other. They're not going to fit in with my other Marvel Legend figures." Well, probably not. But how's that any different than if you collect DC Multiverse comic book figures along with Batman the Animated Series figures? Those are totally different styles of figures. Um, and no, I don't put them on the same shelf together. They're two separate shelves. But I don't know. I just I mean I can't say that like I'm super excited for them just because I guess honestly I'm not a huge fan of the animation style in the movie, but I don't fault Hasbro for that. And I actually applaud Hasbro for giving us something that looks like how they do in that movie. Yeah, I don't know why they gave us. I Does he even like? Is he still wearing the sweatpants in the new movie? I don't know. I feel like with that one, they probably should have just given us Peter B. Parker and his outfit, even though I guess I mean that's basically just Spider Man with a beer gut. But Coco says it doesn't need to be rationalized. It's simply they look like shit. Well, again, if you're like, that's not for me, that style's not for me. I'm not into animated figures or what, that's a legitimate, you know, statement. I guess I'm talking about people that are like bashing Hasbro for essentially giving us something that looks like the source material. Um, and I feel like that's not legitimate complaint to levy against Hasbro. Again, if it's not for you and you don't want them, that I totally get. But if you're sitting there like trying to bash, going online bashing Hasbro because they gave us something that's accurate to the source material, I feel like, I've said this before, but I'm not saying that, Hasbro certainly does a lot of things that might warrant complaining about, but I feel like some fans just look for anything they can to complain about with Hasbro, and when you do that, you essentially become the boy who cries wolf. And what ends up happening is when you complain about everything, people just quit listening to you. So when there's something legit to complain about, um, nobody's going to listen to you. Now, again, that's not to say you should go out and buy these, even if you don't like them. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm just saying, as far as the complaints I see online, bashing Hasbro or saying, they're giving us shit when, these are new sculpted figures. These are, they didn't just take existing figures and reissue them as movie figures. These are newly sculpted figures. So, I think, Hasbro deserves some, credit for doing that. Again, if you're not into that style, that's one thing, but I just feel like, the figures themselves are, they're fairly accurate to me on what they're supposed to be based on. Coco says, "What's the big Spider-Man monster I've seen?" I don't know if I'd call it a monster. I assume. Hold on. I'm trying to. All right, so I assume you're you're talking about this figure. No, this is a basic figure, and this is being sold on Amazon right now. So that's another thing about the Marvel Legend ones. There's nothing in those Marvel Legend figures that's spoilers to the movie that we haven't seen through official promotional, whether images or the trailer. I did find it very coincidental that we got the trailer that morning, and then that evening, all of a sudden, we started to see these figures leak out. But there was nothing in those figures that was really spoilers. The only one that was, we hadn't seen until that morning in the trailer was the Jessica Drew character, but she was in the trailer. So, but this guy was not in the trailer. This, or I guess girl, I guess this is said to be a cyborg version of Spider Woman. So I don't know what this, as far as the movie goes, I don't know what the story is, but this toy, which is again a basic toy, has been out on shelves for like weeks. Again, you can go to Amazon right now and buy this figure if you want to. So this is far more spoilish than anything in those Marvel Legend figures. So I'm not really sure why Hasbro isn't just going on and officially announcing these figures, the Marvel Legend ones, that is, being that all these basic toys have been out on shelves. Spider-Man 2099, Spider-Punk, Spider-Gwen. There's basic figures of those characters that have been out on shelves at Target and Walmart and stuff for weeks. Now, I will tell you that, I wouldn't be surprised if this ends up, a Marvel Legend version of this guy ends up being that Target exclusive figure that I told you about that I found a listing for in the Target system, a deluxe Marvel Legends Spider-Man theme figure. Being that there isn't a Build-A-Figure in the wave for Marvel Legends, I wouldn't be surprised if this guy gets a single release as a deluxe figure, and I wouldn't be surprised if it ended up being a Target exclusive. But I don't know what I mean. It's listed as Spider Verse Cyborg Spider Woman. That is what the toy is listed. Um, and we saw Jessica Drew in the trailer. Now, if you know comics, you know that is Spider Woman. So I don't know if she gets turned into this or what happens in the movie, but John says, I remember the good old days when companies just made 99% of their figures. Yeah, I don't really remember those good old days. Reusing sculpts has always been pretty common in the world of action figures. I mean, look at Masters of the Universe. Every freaking figure was used the same sculpt in that line. I mean, reusing sculpts is nothing new in the world of toys. So I'm not sure of this world you refer of when all 99% were all new figures. No, we didn't. We never got Kingpin. Was it, I thought, well, yeah, we never got a 6-inch scale Kingpin. I think they did that play set. They had like a cardboard cutout of Kingpin, I remember. But they never gave us really a figure. Chuck, why are these new figures on? Well, they're not retro, okay? They are traditional card backs with plastic, and they have the artwork just like the basic figure. It's the same kind of packaging as the basic figure, but they're not retro. Retro would be like based on something of an original toy line. But I think the reason why they're essentially still using plastic is because you got to remember this movie was delayed. This movie was originally supposed to already be out. It was supposed to have come out this year, and that means the toys were supposed to have come out this year. So it means those toys went into production a long time ago and probably have been sitting in a warehouse somewhere, um, waiting for the movie to get released, which now isn't until next summer. So I think the reason why you're essentially seeing that classic card back is because these figures were made before Hasbro had made the switch to non-plastic. Um, and I think they just made it in the style to fit the movie. Again, animated. I mean, they'd never done really animated figures for Marvel Legends before, so the whole line is really kind of unique in that way. And so I think they just made the packaging to fit that animated feel. But as far as the plastic goes, I think that's because these figures were actually produced, some time back, well before Hasbro actually made the switch to non-plastic. And I'm just speculating, but that's why I think that's why you're seeing that. Nicholas says, "I'm 50 and I feel like I see. I disagree. I'm 52 and I disagree. I think yeah, prices are really high these days on toys, and that sucks. But I think as far as like the type of characters we're getting and type of figures we're getting, I think we're more in a golden age of action figures than best days gone by. I mean, just look at GI Joe Classified. I mean, that line. we're getting all those characters and stuff. I never thought that would happen. Or Masters of the Universe. Look at all the different Masters of the Universe figures that we're getting and stuff. Um, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I mean, the NECA animated series line has, really been awesome. So I'm not saying it's perfect, and I'm definitely saying that, prices suck these days, but as far as the figures that we're getting, the type of figures and the character selections, um, I think it's a great time to be an action figure collector. Robert, I never, I mean, Mego was really before my time anyway, but I've never seen any appeal for Mego figures. I don't know. I guess they look too much like dolls, I guess. Um, but I've never been a Mego fan. But I mean, they definitely have their fault. I mean, people who grew up, in the '60s and stuff. I think there's a lot of those guys who love Mego, but I've never been a fan of Mego. Jerry says, but I will agree with you, Jerry, that there's nothing revolutionary. I mean, we're getting really obscure and cool characters for in a lot of ways for Marvel, but we're also getting a lot of repeat characters. I mean, I look at if you want a better example of that, look at Star Wars. I really feel like Star Wars has gotten played out. And I think part of the issue is just they've given us so the characters, all the characters. Star Wars has been such a long line that and so now we're just down to getting reissues of the same characters over and over and over again, or repaints, or how many different versions of Boba Fett do you need? Though I will say, those Boba Fett figures that went up for pre-order this week sold out, so people are still buying those Boba Fett figures. But I've Star Wars is a line that I have been not really been excited about for years. And so there is some aspect to that, in Marvel, I definitely not nearly as excited as the early days of Marvel Legends, but that's just because Marvel Legends were new back then. We'd never seen 6-inch highly articulated figures like that back then. We have now. It's fairly common. But but I still think we're getting a lot of cool stuff these days. We're getting a lot of crap too. I mean, there's just a glutton of stuff that gets released every year, but there's definitely some pretty cool stuff that gets released amongst the glutton of crap as well. Oh, Mego. I mean, Mego. I mean, they gave us Star Trek and superheroes, DC and Marvel. I mean, I think that might have been the last time one company had both the Marvel and DC license at the same time. Um, but yeah, I mean, Mego put out a lot of really cool properties. For me personally, I just never liked the soft goods. I mean, in fact, I'll be honest with you, it's one of the reasons why I don't like Mezco 112 collective figures nearly as much as some other people do. Now, obviously, Mezco figures look a lot better than Mego in my opinion, but I've never been a huge. I prefer plastic sculpted outfits over soft goods ones for the most part. Well, my point, John, is that companies reusing and re parts and stuff is not a new thing in the toy world. Now, I will tell you the repaint thing, like we see with Star Wars, like repainting, 50 different versions of the same, that's maybe something more modern, but reusing parts on figures was always been, and to keep costs down and stuff has always been a very common thing in the toy world. So Um, I think as kids, though, we don't pay attention to that. You know, when we're growing up as kids playing with stuff as a kid, I mean, if you collected He-Man, the Masters of the Universe as a kid, did you really sit there and go, wow, they're reusing the same body with every character? You know, I don't think kids really look at toys that way. So, you know, it may not have been as glaring to you as a kid, but definitely companies reuse the same parts on a lot of different figures, even back then. Capona Bear. I'm 52 and several Mego. Well, I mean, Mego is actually, you know, Mego is back in the game. You know, that I mean, I don't know if we'll ever see Buck Rogers, but I don't know who has the license for that. I have a feeling Buck Rogers might be a license that is caught up in a lot of red tape. But I mean, Mego. I mean, they're still making Mego figures today. I don't. Mego wasn't 3 3/4 inch, so I don't. I won't. I almost. I think the first 3 3/4 inch Marvel figure was probably Mattel Secret Wars, but I won't swear to it. But that's my first recollection of a 3 3/4 inch Marvel figure was the Mattel Secret Wars stuff. And for me, I mean, Toy Biz 5 inch Marvel figures are really what got me into collecting action figures. Meaning, you know, obviously, when as a kid, I got toys to play with. I didn't, you know, really collect them. Star Wars, Transformers, GI Joe. But the first line I really started collecting, which was in high school, was probably the Toy Biz 5 inch Marvel figures. So that's really and even before that, the Toy Biz DC figure. I didn't collect all of those DC figures that Toy Biz did, but I got like the Batman movie figure. I got Superman, which I still have today. I have both those figures. I also have the Flash, but I got a couple of those, and that was in large part because of the Batman movie, the Michael Keaton Batman movie. But then those Marvel figures came out, and I remember when that first wave of 5 inch Toy Biz Marvel figures came out, and that really, um, and I was really heavy into comics at that point. And so I fell in love with those Toy Biz figures, and that's really what got me into collecting action figures. Was those Toy Biz Marvel 5 inch figures, and then also Playmates and their Star Trek figures. I heavily collected back then as well. So um, Mego Pocket Heroes. I I do not recall those. I'll have to look those up. Were were they 3 3/4 inch figures with like soft goods outfits, or were they, you know, all plastic? It'd be hard to do 3 3/4 inch figures with soft goods outfits. Chuck said, "Well, GI Joe for me. I mean, again, if you my first action figure line that I got was Star Wars. Star Wars was the first action figure line that, but I got those not to collect but to play with. So and GI Joe after Star Wars and Transformers after GI Joe. But again, as a kid, I wasn't collecting action figures. I was buying them to play with. So I don't consider that quite the same thing. but definitely, yeah, Star Wars was the first action figure line that I recall. I remember getting. Um, Coco says comic action heroes had bent legs and pocket superheroes had straight. I say I'm gonna Google this now because now you've piqued my curiosity. So I guess these are DC figures they did. No articulation, right? These look like are just static. Well, maybe like 4 points of articulation, five, I guess, but no. Yeah, these have all bent legs and stuff. I I I don't remember these ever seeing these as a kid, so but I as a kid I was never into superhero figures. Um like I said, it was the Toy Biz 5-inch figures when I was in high school that really was the first superhero line that I really got into. But as a kid, I never had any superhero figures. I had some Hot Wheel. I remember having Hot Wheels. Like I collected as a kid. I got Hot Wheels before I started doing any action figures, even before Star Wars. And I remember having like a Spider-Man helicopter with the web. The propeller was basically web. So, but I never had any comic book based action figures until the Toy Biz stuff. And then I went back and got I you know I remember going into Toys R Us's and going on the clearance aisle and finding Mattel Secret Wars stuff, and I would buy up some of those. But even those I didn't collect when they first came out. Jerry says my Marvel Legend Iron Spider-Man also right. Well, I have that. I haven't actually opened. I assume you're talking about the comic book based one. I have that figure. I've not opened it yet though. Coco says Secret Wars Kang and Doom were my favorites. I got a I had I still have Captain America for Secret Wars, and I had Doc Ock, which I think I still have, and I think I had Kang. I remember I wanted Daredevil, but that was a really hard one to get the Secret Wars Daredevil figure. That was like a really rare, hard to find figure. I think I have Baron Zemo now. I bought it at a vintage toy store, but I don't think I had Baron Zemo back then. And Electro, that was another one that I think was pretty hard to get. But like one of the figures I remember like as a favorite of mine was from Toy Biz, the Rage Cage Hulk. I don't know if any of you guys ever had that, but like it was a Hulk figure and it had a cage, and the cage basically came apart really easy. But basically the idea is the Hulk would like do his arms out and he would essentially knock all the cage walls down. I have Wolverine, but it didn't have his claws. In fact, I brown costume Wolverine, but it didn't have the claws. I got it secondhand, and whoever I got it from had lost the claws. Coco says when Kang and Doom both appear in a miniseries, Doom always. Well, I always thought Kang was supposed to be a future version of Doctor Doom. I always thought they were one and the same person, just like a different, like a future version. At one point, that's what they had said in the comics, but maybe they changed that. But DJ, I remember that one too. Blade Runner, Captain Future. I don't remember that one. All right, well, it's getting on to be 8:30, so I think we're gonna call it a wrap tonight. But as always, guys, I much appreciate you guys chiming in here. So again, if you haven't already, check out the contest that I have on Marvelous News and Toy News Eye, where we're giving away not one but two $200 store credits to Big Bad Toy Store. Be back here next week, right before Christmas, and I'm probably going to do a giveaway here for you guys, another one, for some more store credit to Big Bad Toy Store. But as always, guys, keep it real, stay safe out there, and until next time, I'll catch you later.
Hey, thanks for watching today's video, and be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and hit that bell notification so alerted every time I upload a new video. And be sure to head over to the Toy News International and Marvelous News message boards communities. It's a great place to talk toys and win cool contests like $100 store credits to Big Bad Toy Store. And remember, action figures are great.